Hello, and welcome back to Strategy Snacks. I'm Frenchie Ferenczi, and today I am bringing you a really exciting question from someone in my community, Samantha Burmeister. So Samantha is the founder of Nomad Copy Agency, and she writes copy to help people sell more in their launches, and she is very good at it. I can say this because I've worked with her. And she asks the question, when writing copy for an upcoming launch, what do you too often see people overlook in their strategies? So I want to preface this just by clarifying, you all know this, but I'm not a copywriter. But what I see often are consistent, strategic threads that are missing from people's launches, right? Thinking about the through line. And so I would say the first thing that I'll see is a lack of clarity around what action it is that you want your readers or followers, whatever, list members to take. Meaning, you one day are sending them to a sales page, and one day you're sending them to a launch event, and one day you're sending them to an Instagram post, and one day you're sending them to a podcast. What I have found is that when you are in launch mode, the more you can streamline where you're sending people and what action you're asking them to take, the better the likelihood is that they will actually take the action that you want them to take. So in my most recent launch, it's been really focused on driving people to a webinar, masterclass, workshop, whatever you want to call it. When you do just an email launch, it's really driving people to the sales page. So there's a lot of different channels that you can choose. But what I find is that consistent, repeated message of the one action that you want your people to take is really important and often missing. And I think it's missing a lot because it comes from that place of, what if they don't like events and they just want to come to the sales page, and what if they want to do this and want to do that, rather than really flipping the switch, or the script rather, and putting you in the driver's seat of how are you going to most effectively hit your launch goals? So speaking of hitting launch goals, I think that I've definitely made this mistake. I don't know anyone who hasn't made this mistake in some capacity, but it can feel like a lot of pressure at times that in a launch, your goal is to sell as much as possible or to hit whatever, targets you have for your program. Now, while that's not untrue, I think that the reality of it is actually much more nuanced. And what you want is not to sell people, but to actually really lay out why they might want to participate in whatever it is that you are offering. And what I think happens is that when we look at it through the lens of, the content and the copy can land in a shallow way, rather than thinking about, how do I make the right people really realize what this opportunity could mean for them? So whether that's in the wellness space, the business space, the branding space, and so on and so forth. So I think really clarifying that distinction, that your goal isn't just to fill spots and sell spots. Your goal is to show your audience and your ideal audience the value of joining the program. Because again, when I talk a lot about this idea of control, you can't control what action people take. You can control what you put out there. And so what you want to do is really present and deliver your offer in the most desirable way. And then I would say, last but certainly not least, a lot of people half-ass their launches out of fear that they are not going to succeed. And so they're like, I'm just doing a sort of launch, a kind of launch. I'm not really launching. It's kind of a soft launch, whatever you want to call it. And so they don't really go all in on the copy, and they don't go all in on one, key action, and they don't really think about how to entice their ideal customers with their offer and share the value of their offer with their ideal customers. And so everything is done a little bit half-assed because you're walking on your tiptoes around this idea. You don't want it to be real launch because you don't want to, whatever stories we have around launching. And I think that can be really problematic. And 1000% gets in the way of the success of a launch. And that doesn't mean that the first launch that you go all in on is going to be a resounding success, but the more you really try to do it and do it, what I would call like an honest launch, just go for it, the more likely you are to really see results that you want, or at the very least, learn what you need in order to have a better performing launch next time. That is my answer to this question. Samantha, you are the queen of all things copy. So I think that you can get really granular on the word side, right? And how do people do all this? How do you have a consistent and clear call to action without it sounding boring? How can you actually present your offer in a way that's not about selling it, but that's really about showcasing the value of it? So I would love to hear from you as well. And for anyone listening, if you have any follow-up questions, make sure that you follow up with me on Instagram, send me a DM there. Always love to hear from you. Or make sure that you are connected with Sam and following her on Instagram and all the other links that we will share in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here, Samantha. Thank you so much for sharing this question with us and for giving me an opportunity to answer it. I'm so grateful for your contributions, and we'll be back with more strategy snacks soon. Thank you so much, everyone.